Mandy Smith has had a colourful life. After marrying a member of the Rolling Stones and pursuing a career in modelling, Mandy is now a committed follower of Jesus Christ and coaches young girls in their journey in life. I'm absolutely delighted today to have this opportunity to speak with Mandy Smith. Mandy, I'm so thrilled that you've taken some time out to talk with me.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege.
Well, thank you for saying yes.
Thanks.
Well, you've obviously got a very fascinating, interesting past, and I don't want to go into the past because I'd rather go into the future.
All right.
And but in order to give our kind of conversation context, though, if you don't mind us just going into the past a little bit.
You have to, really, don't you? For people to get a feel of what's gone on in my life.
Tell us, Mandy, where did you grow up?
I grew up in North London, so I'm a good North London girl.
Where in North London?
Tottenham.
Really?
So I'm still a Tottenham supporter.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Tottenham and then moved to Wood Green.
Right.
And I spent most of my younger days there, really.
Right.
Up until I was a teenager, yeah.
God, Wood Green's pretty Wood Greek now.
Yeah.
Did you? I'm Greek.
I've got so many Greek friends.
Oh.
It's true, because then I moved up to sort of Muswell Hill and then Winchmore Hill.
Oh,
so
round
Winchmore
there.
Hill is really Greek.
Yeah.
But I like the community.
Right.
See, so I always used to sort of go towards that, because they still, no matter what, they have that community feel.
Tell us about your family. So one sister.
One sister, but I'm from a big Irish family.
Yes.
My mother's Irish, and she's one of 10.
Right.
Yes. So I come from a big family, so lots of cousins, and that's how I grew up. I never sort of really grew up with lots of friends around. It was family, and that's how we mixed with family friends.
Now, but your father wasn't around?
No. I can remember him early days.
Yes.
But just vaguely, you know, in and out really. But then I think my real memories of my dad were every Sunday when he used to sort of come and pick us up really and take us out. It was like a treat. But he wasn't really there as a role model.
No.
Not at all.
And then your mother got quite ill.
Yeah, she did.
And did you and your sister have to look after her?
Yes and no, really. She did get really ill, and I think I was about 7, 8 at the time. And I think in anything in your life, you just, because my mum loved us wholeheartedly, and we felt that, even though she was ill, we took it as the norm. What else could we do? So she looked after us as much as she could.
Yes.
But then we did learn to do things for ourselves as well. But I was a bit of a little old granny anyway. I used to love doing the cleaning and the tidying and the cooking and but I think I took on then too much.
Yes, and I read
as a younger girl.
I read several places how your sister commented how you always appeared much older than you looked. Yeah. So obviously you took on the responsibility of almost like mothering.
Yeah. I think I liked it because I think when you're younger, you know, young people always want to be older or have some, you know, they just can't wait to grow up.
Yes.
So I think my opportunity came there. You know, I liked dressing up. I was real girly.
Yes.
But I think, you know, if I had a father around or if my mum wasn't ill, you know, they're your role models that do put the reins on you and say, right, you know, that's not your responsibility. You go out and carry on playing, which I did. So I still have great memories of being out and having fun. But there were other things that weren't so fun that I don't look back now and think, my life was gone, you know, my childhood.
Sure.
But because I loved my mum, you did the things you had to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, the
But
choice.
then living in North London and almost in obscurity, you become a teenager, and before you know it, wow, you're kind of headline news.
Yes. When I was 13, I was about 13 and a half, that's when I met Bill Wyman.
Yes.
And I think people have this image that at that age, my mum was there dressing my sister and I up and pushing us out to nightclubs. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because my mum still wasn't particularly well at this time. My sister and my cousins were already going out, but locally, not into London, you know, so it was still North London, and nightclubs, you know, 25 years ago.
It was different.
You know, drugs and
Yes.
girls, drugs just weren't around. Well, we didn't know about them.
Yes.
And the only thing you knew of was guys having a fight, and they would just, you know, it was a little fist fight, and that was it. There was no knives and guns, and you know, the underworld was the underworld. It was somewhere else.
Sure.
And when girls had a drink, you know, they had a drink, one drink, two drinks.
Yes.
It wasn't all this
No.
binge drinking.
No.
So it was different. So we went out locally. Well, my sisters did, and
Yes.
my cousins. And it was just through me begging, let me come, let me come. You know, I looked older and wore all their clothes.
Yes.
And, you know, and one time my mum said, well, just go with them, you know, you can go this once. And she was probably sitting up till we came in. But you're not bothered when you're out
No,
enjoying
of
yourself
course not.
dancing, are you? So that's what happened, and it was at one of the nights that we'd gone out locally. Some of the bouncers on the door gave us some tickets. They said, look girls, we've been given these tickets to the British Rock and Pop Awards.
Yeah. Do you want them?
Do you want them? Yeah, you know,
Yes.
we'll go.
Yes.
And that's what happened. But the Rock and Pop Awards at that time, it was live, and it was about 6 in the evening. So my mum said, well, yeah, you can go.
It didn't
You're
seem
all
too
together.
bad, yes.
You're all together, and it's an early evening thing. Why not, into town? And that was our first venture, really, into London.
Yes.
So before that, it wasn't. It was all kept locally. But I
Sure.
think people really had this image of, you know, being pushed out there, and it wasn't like that.
And then obviously you met Bill.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
started dating.
Yeah.
There was a huge age difference.
Yeah.
But as you also mentioned in something I read, you know, obviously he became like a father figure
Yeah.
to you.
I think at the time, I don't think anything at the time I looked at him in any kind of way other than, I think my mum was really ill, and meeting him, I mean, when I first met him, I didn't know who he was, and I just
No.
thought, oh, he's this older man, and I don't fancy him. And
Yes.
but I think over a period of time, you know, he used to take my sister and I out for lunch, and we'd meet friends, and you know, it was quite a nice way of life. And
Sure.
we thought, oh, this is quite nice. And I think from where we looked at where we were, my mum wasn't well. We didn't know what was going to happen to her. And it wasn't thinking about glitz and glamour and what we could get or money, because
No.
to be honest, Bill wasn't like that. So that's not what we had in mind, or even of what people might think.
Sure.
It was more about, for us, one, I think we wanted to probably get out of the surroundings we were in,
Yes.
because where we lived, I think it was just on the cusp there of things starting to change in life. You know, we were hearing about stabbings and different things going on, so we did want
Sure.
to sort of move out. And I think my mum had that in mind for us anyway, all of us, you know, to move just further up the way, as you do, you know, you sort of move up the road. So nothing was ever set out, or, you know, this is what we want in life. It was never as structured as that. It was just something that happened. And I think with Bill, the more I got to know him, and I think it was what he showed towards me, and you know, what he felt for me, and I think that's what got me
Sure.
enamoured by it all, really. And it was being shown a bit of love, which probably I hadn't had from a male role, you know, model in my life. Even from uncles and people, it just wasn't there.
It wasn't, it wasn't expressed.
No.
No.
So I think just by having that, it was such a big, it was almost like a big hug. But I think how people see it in black and white, it just looks very debauched and very
Yes.
wrong. And there are aspects of it that are not right.
No.
And I understand that now. And I can see where all of us in my family come under a lot of pressure for it and a lot of flack.
But then you got married.
Yeah.
You married Bill
Yeah.
when you were 18.
I was 18, yes.
And was it initially a happy marriage?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I suppose because I'm going through all the cycle of everything
Yes.
here, and I pause when I say that. I don't think I ever went into marriage thinking, why am I doing this?
No.
I did it because I felt it was the right thing to do. I have a whole different thinking now about marriage.
Course.
And looking back, I can see what the wrongs were of the marriage, and
Yes.
going into it for whatever reasons of thinking it was love or
Whatever.
whatever.
Yes.
It wasn't right.
No.
But we do these things, and in some ways I'm glad I've made all the mistakes I've made.
Yeah. Mandy, how long did your marriage last with Bill?
It was about 2 years. in all, really.
Yes.
Yeah. But I
Did
think
you remain friends after that? Was it amicable?
no, it wasn't,
No.
because I think, you know, living in the media glare, for one, it
Yeah.
wasn't good. But two, my health at that time really took a downturn. My health had always been quite fragile through the
Yes.
years. But I think with the pressure of life and even the pressure of being married to him as a
Sure.
person, because I think I knew what we had between us and the history and expectations
Yes.
of how I should have been. And I just think we had a bit of a gap of about a year where I went off and lived my life before we
Yes.
got married. And I'd enrolled in, you know, I had a music career and modelling and things. So I think it was quite difficult really then to embark on this married life.
Yeah.
And just, I think I changed. And then with my health, as I said, taking a turn, I wasn't feeling the support that I should have got, because I wasn't the person anymore
No.
that he had married.
Yes. And you felt quite weak
Yeah,
physically.
yeah,
And
physically, mentally, emotionally.
did you know what it was, what the illness was, or?
I had a vague idea of things that were going on because my mum.
Yeah.
And a lot of my symptoms ended up being similar to hers.
Right.
So, you know, I always think, you know, the man upstairs, I look back now and think maybe my mum suffered, you know, not in vain now, because I understand
Sure.
her suffering. I did. She could help me.
Yes.
And that's why my mum was around a lot, and people thought, oh, can't she get rid of her mum? You know, they always thought, but she was one of my saving graces.
Right. How long were you ill for? Did that last for?
Yeah, it lasted a long time. Probably about a good 10 years, to be
Really?
honest. Yeah. You know, but throughout that, you know, it just had its ups and downs. But I'd say the first sort of good 3 or 4 years were quite hellish, really.
Yes. But then you
Yeah.
remarried,
Yes.
and
Yep.
and that, how long did that
Yeah,
last?
Pat was a lovely guy. We were
Yes.
together for 5 years. We were
Yes.
married for a few years. But I understand now why I got married, and as I said before, you know, what you think love is and relationships. So I don't think I really knew what love was. And I think for me, it's when I had my son that I could understand more about love.
Yes.
And I knew that everything I did, then, well, I had to sort of learn about myself and see what my needs were in my life. And I think all I ever did was look for other people to either fix me or to fulfill my needs. And I never really looked after myself. So I think having Max gave me that time out
Sure.
to concentrate on him, but at the same time, look after my own needs.
Yes.
And that's how I found out more about life, really.
Life.
Yeah.
I read some fascinating articles about you recently that all talked about your faith.
Yeah.
So have you always been a spiritual person?
Yeah, definitely. I was brought up a Catholic.
Right.
The big Irish family, you know.
Yes, sure.
But I always went to Catholic schools, which I loved. I really loved. I loved that community feel. I never really loved the church side as much, because even looking back then, I always found it a bit hypocritical. You know, you'd see the mothers dragging some of the kids in,
Yes.
kicking and screaming, and I'd think, well, they just don't get it. But don't
No,
be
and
then telling them off and bashing them when you get them.
No.
So I even think from a young age, I had this real awareness about things. And so we'd go to church, but I think when my mum became ill, we didn't go as much. And then people would try and take us, and then it sort of petered out, really. And then I think it was around the time where I should have made my confirmation.
Yes.
I was out
Yes.
doing other things at that
things.
age. So that's when I lost my way, really, with the church. It was always in my heart, but I wasn't practicing,
No,
and I didn't get it.
And I read that often you'd go into an empty church and
Yeah.
just pray.
Yeah.
And, so you always prayed throughout these
Yeah.
years, if
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want to label them the wilderness years,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But during the time that you were ill,
Yeah.
you had some kind of an epiphany.
I've had a few actually throughout my life, but I think when I was ill, that was the real downtime to really look and think, what is going on here?
Yes.
And really, that's when I needed him most. So my prayers, I used to think sometimes they're going unanswered. I think before, when I had faith, I didn't have a connection with God.
Sure.
I just prayed and I just did what I was taught. But I think when I became ill, I got to know God and I had a connection with him, and it was like a relationship. And I got to know about him and what he wanted, what his needs were from me. And then it sort of grew from there. But I still didn't fully connect at that point even.
So when did that connection really take place? When did it all crystallise for you?
I think fully was when I went to Medjugorje.
Right.
In Croatia.
Yes.
And that was, Max came with me, so he was only about, he was about 4 or 5 at the time.
Did you go on a pilgrimage with other people?
Yeah, I went with some friends.
Yeah.
You know, I've had some, even throughout my illness, I had some real friends who always kept me in the faith.
Right.
You know, don't give up. You know where you're coming from. You know what's in your heart. So I always had that there, and so I felt really lucky, and you know, we're still brilliant friends to this day. And they said, you know, do you want to come to Medjugorje? And I thought, well, you know, I said, I want to go to Lourdes really.
Yes.
And they said, no, Medjugorje. So we went, and I took Max, and I thought, this is not the place to take your kid. You know, they want to go sunshine holidays, and Max hadn't even really been on many sunshine holidays because I wasn't big on going away. But he loved it. He absolutely, and he behaved so well, and and I think from that trip he's got to learn himself about the way, and just having that, what word can I say? I don't know, he's got this gratitude now about things and just this understanding.
Yes.
But I think it was when we took a trip up one of the mountains, we did a climb, you know, and it was just Max and I, and each station of the cross, we sort of had a little pray and a little bit of fun and a walk, and it was lovely. We had a great time.
It's quite moving, isn't it? Doing the stages of the cross.
Oh, it was. It was fascinating. And I just think after that trip, I just think I'd made a promise that I'd go to church every Sunday. And I don't think it was just the fact of me just going to church. It was the fact that I never wanted to be without him again. So I wanted to make that commitment. Sure. And because God knew me so well, me and commitments didn't go hand in hand. And being at places and being committed to something just weren't my forte. But I promised to make that commitment, and since that day.
Since then, it's changed. Yeah. So you always had the belief, and often, I mean, a lot of people have the belief, don't they? But they don't always have the behaviour. No. And you know, their walk isn't always consistent with their talk. Because
it's not easy.
No,
it's not.
But if we're going to be followers of Jesus, then we really need to validate it. Yeah. And obviously, you came back, and this kind of last season of your life, you've taken faith seriously.
Oh, definitely.
In the way that you live your life and what you do.
Definitely. And one thing I hear a lot of people say is, you're not ashamed to say it. And I think, why would I be? And it really surprises me now, looking at other people that really feel and know God, why on earth they wouldn't spread it more or feel ashamed.
Yes.
Because I think, well, if it can take you to a better place and fulfill that bit in you that has been missing for years, why would you not want him in your life? Or why would you be worried about mentioning him? Because, you know, there's that stigma attached that actually, if you believe in God, or if you believe that you are actually someone that has to wear a skirt down to here, no makeup, can't colour your hair, not allowed to laugh, and not allowed to go out and dance or party anymore. So I think, you know, and I think that's why I'm mixed with some really great people, and I've known some fantastic priests who are just human beings that know how to enjoy life, as well as having this fantastic relationship with God. So actually, they've been my role models. Even though, as I said, I was brought up in Catholic schools. Yes. But sometimes... I know. Oh, you know, God bless them, because it was. Yes. And I used to want to know why we couldn't do certain things or be a certain way, why they didn't want us to have our skirts, you know, pencil skirts instead of A-line, looking like good Catholic girls. I used to explain to me, don't just tell me I can't. You know, and I didn't understand the reasoning behind it, because for them that was respect. Whereas we know now, you know, respect is so many more things rather than just about how you look.
Sure.
because now even for church, you know, if you've got jeans on and trainers, you can still come into church.
Absolutely. God looks at the heart.
Yeah, and I think that's where even maybe someone like myself can help to break down some barriers and show people the new way that God is, or the way he's always been, but interpret it in the way that he wants to be seen now.
But how would you now, how would you tangibly serve God in your life now? I mean, you've got the faith, you're following Jesus. How are you practically serving God?
Do you mean on a daily basis?
Yes,
what do I do?
Yes, what do you do?
Every step of my day, from the minute I open my eyes, I talk to him. I thank him for my sleep, for waking up, for seeing my son, for having my food. So I think every step of my day, I'm in contact with him.
Yes.
And talking to him like he's that person in my life that guides me, that actually I need to consult him before I make certain moves in my day. And I think at first, when I did this years ago, it was hard work.
Yes.
I thought, oh, you're getting on my nerves, you're in my way today, because I'm in a hurry. I've got to get there, and I've got to get there. And I haven't got 2 minutes to sit here saying, please God.
Sure.
Whereas now, you know, it's like anything, you have to practice. And it doesn't get on my nerves. All right, some days, you know, I mean, all right, let's be human here. I am human. And some days, if I am in a hurry and, you know, being mum and doing the shopping and doing the cooking and he's like, come on, you haven't asked me. So I think that's what it is. He's like, ask and you'll receive. And that's what I do a lot of. That's how it's tangible for me. And so for me, I love going to church. I just find it's a real place where I can connect and cut off from the outside world. And I really feel like I'm going there to have a proper meeting.
Great.
A proper meeting place
Yeah.
where I can really just connect.
Be that lovely, I like that verse from Psalms, be still and know that I am God.
Yeah, that's lovely.
You know, and sometimes we need to do that, don't we? Just
definitely.
Stop.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think sometimes, as I said, the world can be a hectic place and it can be full of pressures, and sometimes I think that's why people say, how can I connect to God? I've got so much going on, I'm so stressed. And I think, well, if you have God in your life, he can actually take some of that away.
Absolutely.
You have to let it go.
Yeah, of course you do.
You have to, because you actually can't do anything about it sometimes.
It's great to know that you're trying to help other people, and I gather you've got a real heart for younger girls and boys. What do you do? What are you trying to do to help them?
I've got a couple of sort of jobs at the moment. They're all volunteer jobs. One of them is I do mentoring. Well, first of all, I think how it started for me when I moved to Manchester was I became a catechist.
Right.
And I actually helped my son through his communion and confirmation, because in Manchester they do the two together.
Yes.
So it was lovely, you know. It was I was quite nervous at first, because I think being new for me, coming sort of back into the faith, you know, I had to sort of make sure I knew things, and I was a bit worried because I think I wasn't up on everything. I hadn't been a great reader, and I think that's where I'm up to now. I'm learning more about the Gospels and about the Bible. So back then I think I was a little bit nervous, but I think there was more to it. I had to sort of just give them my support and the things I'd known and learned. So once I'd done it, I felt really good about it. So being a catechist, I loved it. I really loved it. So from doing that and working with the younger children, I thought, yeah, I definitely want to do stuff.
That's great.
Around the children. So, you know, it was just through looking in a newspaper. It said doing mentoring in schools. And so that's what I've been doing as well with young girls and boys.
Brilliant. And meeting them on a one-to-one.
Yeah,
I
go and see them a couple of times a week, and it's more the end of the ones that are going to leave soon, 15, 16.
Great.
So it's encouraging them, you know, for when they leave school. But sometimes it's not, it's about their self-esteem I'm trying to plug into.
Sure.
Because some of them might not be too sure about the outside world, leaving school, that environment. So it's plugging into their self-esteem, making them feel good, and sort of teaching them that they've got to sort of be independent and grow and find themselves, really. So through my experiences, I think
brilliant.
I'm just sort of talking through it with them. And
so most of them probably don't know who you are.
No,
when
they don't
meet
really.
You.
No.
But
the schools do.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
But the kids tend not to.
And you're just sharing your life experience and what your bit of your own journey.
And I think, you know, if they talk about anything about themselves, which I can relate to, I do then sort of share some of my experiences with them and say at any point, you can move on from that. You have another chance, and you can take a different road and do something different. And you know, and it's really funny, so many of these young children mention God. Even if they don't really know about God, but they do somewhere. So it's quite interesting.
I know,
and I love when I hear that.
There's a spirituality there, isn't there? I mean, sometimes, you know, it's a bit of a pick and mix spirituality, a bit of this, bit of that, but there is a heart that's yearning, isn't there?
Yeah, and I see it in so many young people.
When you look back over your life, Mandy, there's a little saying about how God can write straight with our crooked paths. I like that verse, Mandy, in the Bible in Romans 8, where it says all things work together for good. Obviously things aren't always good, and we often go through lots of winter seasons, and obviously you've gone through lots of winter seasons, and there's been things in your life that haven't been good, but somehow God has worked it and weaved it into good.
And
it's
that's
interesting.
What makes the difference.
Your book, Mandy, titled "It's All Over Now." Obviously, this came out. Was it '90s, early '90s? I think it came out. It's all over now, and I think your next book should read "It's Only Just Begun." Just one final thing, Mandy, for anyone like looking now, listening to our conversation, who feels that they've made a mess in their lives and struggling with faith, what would you say to them?
I would say, one, like you said, be still and just take a moment. And all it takes is just to ask God to come into your life. It might not be instant, and to be honest, it's very rarely instant, is it, when you ask God into your life? Because people always want this epiphany, and it's never really like that. But there is a chance for everybody, no matter who. Even if you feel you've done the worst things, you can be forgiven and take your life back to somewhere, and it can be of use for someone else. So even if you're not living the quality you would prefer in life, because some people still aren't they? Are they?
Sure.
Through ill health or through anything really. But God will give you some kind of a gift where you can make a difference in the world, this world as we know it. So no matter what, there is hope for you to do something that can make this world a better place for you and for someone else. So there's always hope.
There is definitely always hope. Mandy, it's only just begun. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
really appreciate it. Thank you.